please. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Father God, we just give you the glory, the honor, and the praise, and we thank you for keeping us yet again to be able to come together and do the business of the city. We also thank you for keeping us safe throughout this bad weather and keeping our families safe. We ask that you would bring restoration, healing, and comfort to those that were involved in that was affected by the hurricane. And Father God, we just ask that you would be in the midst of this meeting. Father God, that you would give us guidance, wisdom, peace, and Father God, that we will be able to bring forth the ideas that we need to bring forth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
Oh, I'm on mute. That's why nobody can hear me. Sorry about that. Council Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. Councilwoman Jones,
Good evening, everyone. Here.
Councilman Herring,
Here.
Councilman Hairston,
Here.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
Here.
Councilwoman Fareed,
Here.
Vice President Ferguson,
Here.
President Curtis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Thank you, Councilman Harrison. Any discussion? Okay.
Yes,
Council Clerk?
Mr. President. The closed session on real estate.
Yes.
What is that?
It was, I think, a request to purchase some land by someone in the city. City Manager Barber can elaborate more on it, but according to our charter, she wanted to discuss that in a closed session as it allows under our charter. That's
not allowed under our charter. Then now we're dealing with city property. If we're in negotiations under a contract or something, a contract negotiation that's different. But when we're discussing city tax dollars and city property, that is actually not a closed session. We've never gone in a closed session to discuss property sales of any kind since I've been in council. As I understand, it's a contract, but City Manager Barber, would you care to elaborate?
Yes, sir. So thank you. There is not an imminent contract. So this was to discuss a number of requests that have come across my desk about city property for sale.
That's not a closed meeting. We had a very, very, very open meeting on that issue for a number of years on city property being sold, especially if they were unbuildable lots. So we have the legislation already in progress, already in place. If it's unbuildable lot and it's on our unbuildable lot list, and any other property that anyone's interested in buying, that has to be done in an open meeting because we can't just arbitrarily sell a piece of property to one person. We have to put it up for bid and put it on auction for everybody to be able to purchase a piece of property in the city of Glenarm. If we don't sit there and recognize it as an unbuildable piece of property. So any discussion we have about city property needs to be in an open forum, not in a closed discussion, especially since we're not even talking contracts or anything else. Thank you, Councilman Harry. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to request that the topics of discussion for the neighborhood park design and for the Charter Review Committee be moved to the last two topics of discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Jones.
I think under that piece of paper that we have to fill out for closed session, also mentions something about real estate. So you might want to look at that again. And I guess first we need to find out exactly what it is, what the issue is. So, but I think under that piece of paper that you fill out for closing a meeting that has to go to the state of Maryland also mentions something about real estate, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. So what we could do is, if it is a legitimate purpose to discuss in closed session, we can discuss it. If it's not, then we'll halt discussion and move it to the next meeting. The city manager requested it under closed session, so I'm assuming that it's something of not personal, but private in nature. So if it is determined to be private, we'll keep it there. If not, then we'll halt discussions and move that to our next meeting. Any other discussion? Okay, all right. Council Clerk, vote to accept the agenda with moving Councilman Fareed's topics discussion to the end of the discussions, and with the caveat that if, well, we can discuss that in private, in closed session, but if it's not, closed session material, we'll move out. So go ahead, Council Clerk.
Councilwoman Jones,
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
Yes.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fareed,
Yes.
Vice President Ferguson,
Yes.
President Curtis.
Yes.
We have 7 is passed.
All right, thank you. First on the agenda is the Penrose Development presentation by Mr. Pat Bateman. Mr. Bateman.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I sent a copy of it in advance. I can share my screen if I'm enabled to. Let me see if I can do that.
Yes, you should be able to.
Perfect. Okay, is that working for everybody?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. So I wanted to say good evening and thank you for having us back in front of you. We were last here in a similar setting, a virtual meeting, July of 2021. A lot has happened since then, and I do have some very good updates to report. You're going to be seeing some serious things happening out there pretty soon, which is great. So I'm Pat Bateman. I'm with Penrose. I'm managing this project. I worked on phase 2A, which was the second half of the senior building, the 55 units that were added in 2020. And I also worked on phase 1, which was built in 2017. And with me is Mike Little, our partner with B&W Solutions. So Mike, if you want to say hey, if you're able to, that'd be great.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody.
So thanks, Mike. So Patrick Stewart, who you've all seen and met before, was unable to join us, but this update I'm going to give is going to look a lot like the last one. We just wanted to come out and give you some updates and let you know what's going on out there. So we're first going to look at kind of a reintroduction and then talk about what's happened out there for everyone's benefit, and then go into what's going to happen soon. And that's 2 new rental phases that should be starting construction this fall. So Penrose is partnered with the Redevelopment Authority, B&W Solutions, Mike Little, who you just heard from, and Shabak Ministries. And then all the other party members here, Mosley Architects, Ben Dyer, Harkins Builders, and Penrose Management Company have all worked on prior phases. So we're all very, very comfortable with the site, and it's going to ensure that everything goes even smoother than it did in phase 2A. A brief recap here of the site. So phase 1 has been completed in the orange, along with phase 2A was the most recent phase that was completed. Mostly what we're talking about tonight is the phase 3 9% in red, which is 44 units, and the phase 3 4% in blue, which is 114 units. And those are two separate projects. They're moving together concurrently. It's actually a twin. So if you've heard about the twin projects that the state agency is very focused on funding these days, this is one of them. It utilizes both 9% competitive credits and the 4% non-competitive tax credit. So that's why we have two projects now that are supposed to start construction during the same time. And then phase 1A and phase 4 are the homeownership units that are being built. And we expect those to break ground early next year along Hamlin Street, with phase 4 following shortly thereafter. There's quite a bit of text on this screen. I just wanted to share kind of, we've had this running list of all the major milestones, all the major presentations and participation that we've done, going all the way back to 2015, shortly after we were selected to be the master redeveloper of this site. I just wanted to point out the top couple things here. So we finished leasing phase 2A last summer. Again, July 2021 was the last time we came before you and gave an update. In March 2022, we received all of our final site plan approvals from Park and Planning. We're still working on our building permits, but that was the actual detailed site plan approval. And then December, very early December 2022 is when we're going to close on both the 9% and 4% projects. So that constitutes 158 rental units, the vast majority of which are tax credit units. There is a good chunk of market rate units in there as well. And that will be the balance of the rental units on the site. So these are the final two rental phases. Here's phase 1 and phase 2A, the projects that have been completed this far, and just some brief pictures. I know you all have seen the site. Maybe you haven't driven through it lately, but I'm sure you've been past it on Bright Seat Road. So on the left is the stacked and townhouse units, the family units, and then on the right side of the slide is the senior building. Then some pictures of amenities, a typical unit, bedroom, a typical unit, family space and kitchen. And then the phase 2A portion of the building that was added as a major addition in 2020, along with units that very closely matched what was built in the original part of the building in phase 1. So where we're headed, these two projects I mentioned, the 4% and the 9%, we're pushing now as hard as we can to close these as early in December as possible. We've started closing calls with the state agency, CDA. We're very close to building permits, and we're just pushing through the final part of the process now to try to start construction as soon as possible, try to build these remaining 158 rental units on the site. These are the typical income bands and sizes and square footage of the units. Again, there's a lot of information on this slide, but I just wanted to point out the center column, the AMI bands. You can see that the majority of the units, especially in the 4% project, are set at 60% of area median income. The majority of the 9% project, those 44 units, are set at 30% maximum area median income. And then the 4% project also has 20 market rate units. So the existing conditions that I'm sure everyone's seen out there, the mass grading operations completed by the RDA were done several months ago. The site has been stabilized and is just awaiting us to close and start construction on these. The design of the buildings will very closely match what was built in phase 1. These stacked townhouse type buildings will look exactly what's like already out there. And there will be 6 of these buildings in the 9% and 7 of them in the 4%. And then the 4% project right on the corner of Eve Arts and Bright Seat Road will have a large 54 unit walk-up building that will be made up of 1 and 2 bedroom units. And this is where the market rate units will be housed. Some more images of the 9% project. And then one thing that's progressed very far since the last time we were in front of you was the layout of the amenity spaces. So the clubhouse, the 6,000 square foot clubhouse was built in phase 1, and so was the tot lot there at the bottom of the image, at the bottom of the plan. And what is planned to be added in the 4% project is a pool. There will be a kids pool at the bottom left-hand corner of the image there, and there will be a sports surface, and that will all complement the existing playground, the existing clubhouse, and the existing patio area that you see there with the tables. And these amenities, like the clubhouse, will be available to everybody on the site, including homeownership units that have yet to be built. So this is very much a community clubhouse for the entire redevelopment. And it's been designed as such to support, a total of 424 units, including the homeownership units. You'll see similar amenities to phase 1 in phase 3 that I think have been very well received. In particular, we're using what's called LVT, luxury vinyl flooring, high-end tiles in the bathrooms, and in-unit washers and dryers, which I know are very popular. And then we'll meet a number of sustainability criteria like NGBS on both projects. The 9% projects will have a Zero Energy Ready Home certification. All new units will be Energy Star. That includes appliances. And then we'll have some alternate energy, some solar panels on the 9%, and hopefully on the 4% if we're able to add them during construction. So this is just another look at how these 2 projects have progressed. The 9% project, we submitted the tax credit application way back in September of 2020. We were awarded that project early in 2021, and since then we've been pushing forward with this project as quickly as we can. We're going to be getting the building permit soon. We'll close the loans and start construction in December. And then the 9% project is much smaller, so it has a duration of 12 months, and you'll see a duration of 19 months on the 4% project. So the contractor will be able to move through both of those phases concurrently and deliver those 158 units within about 19 months of when we start in December. And then very briefly on the homeownership phases. So we're working with NVR on the vast majority of these lots. That includes phase 1A. You should start seeing those townhouses being built early next year, and phase 4 will follow closely behind it with another 73 townhouse units starting late summer, early fall of 2023. And this is some of the floor plans that they're utilizing, and you can see the variation and the quality of construction that you'll find in those homeownership units. the vast majority of those homeownership units will be fully market rate sold to new residents or returning residents of Glenarden. And 20 of those units will be restricted by their sales price to people earning up to 120% AMI. So before we jump into questions, I just want to do a very quick plug and request. So things have, not surprisingly, continued to have been challenging since 2021, the last update we gave last July. Construction costs have not let up, I think, in the way that anybody had hoped. And I'm sure that everybody has heard about what's going on with interest rates. So the challenges with moving this project forward have continued, and we've taken a lot of steps to mitigate them. We've spent a lot of time looking at value engineering, reducing construction costs. We've hit the pavement pretty hard with a lot of lenders. We've increased our tax credit pricing with the investor. We've secured an additional $1 million from Prince George's County for a total contribution across both of these new rental phases of $4.5 million. We've secured an additional $4.5 million from the state agency to try to help move these projects forward, and their contribution is now $6.5 million toward both of these projects, which they both combine to be $63 million total investment in the city of Glenarden. And types of things we've seen on other projects too. For instance, another project of ours in Baltimore of similar scale, we secured an additional $12 million from Baltimore City to assist in making that project, keeping that project feasible. And then some other projects we've been able to secure things like permit fee waivers and impact fee waivers. So given the level of support we've received, the leveraging and success we've had with getting additional funding from the state agency and from the county, and the fact that this project will be extremely impactful to the city of Glenarden, especially compared to those other areas, which are certainly much larger and have much larger footprints. The very simple and minor request that we're making is to have the city permit fee potentially waived, which will constitute about $240,000, which is it might sound like a drop in the bucket, but we've really looked at every single line item in these budgets very intensively over the last 12-18 months to get these projects to work. And as we move toward closing, the budgets don't look exactly like we want them to, but we've made commitments within the county, within local jurisdictions, such as yourself, and with financing parties in the state to continue to move this forward. So I wanted to give that plug and make that request. And then, of course, open it up for any questions that anyone might have. And Mike, of course, if you have anything to add, by all means. So I appreciate everyone's time. And if anybody has any questions now or would like to follow up, I'm happy to try to answer anything and follow up with any information that I might need to gather to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Councilwoman Fareed.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman, for that presentation. I just would like to know, when will applications become available so that citizens or others can access them? And where will that information be made available?
So applications, we typically start leasing about 3 months ahead of when construction is completed. So for the 9% project, we would start leasing operations next fall, sometime around August of 2023. And then we would just roll that leasing process right into the 4% project as those buildings start to become available in early 2024.
Okay, and where would one go to access the applications?
We've been managing, so obviously on site, anybody could go to the community clubhouse. That's where the main leasing center for the property is. So they would have any information there, any flyers, anything like that. Applications, certainly, they're already running that whole process for the first couple phases. So that would be a way for people to do it. We've also incentivized resident referrals from prior phases previously. So we go out and say, if anybody knows anyone they would like to live here, any family members or any friends, anyone they know, we've kind of leveraged residents of prior phases in that regard. And then we do have a full website as well that we use to manage the property. And that's the kind of information we'll start getting out there early so people can go to the website. And the first thing we always do is set up a page where people can input their information and get email updates as units become available and leasing begins.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, it's on the point that you were just speaking about, asking the city for the waiver and the additional funding that you were able to collect from the state and from the county. I'm curious to know that additional funding certainly helps your company in managing their costs. What, if anything, will the citizens of the state, the county get in return for that additional funding? Will it just be continuing the project as is? Or are there any additional concessions that your company will be making, perhaps additional units that are not at market rate, but are more affordable? What are we getting in exchange for that $12 million and then the additional $240,000 that you're asking of us?
So that money, while it is certainly a lot of money, and it certainly sounds like a lot of money, to put kind of things in perspective, we've had a construction cost increase alone, and that's only a small portion of the full development budget, of 25% since 2020. So we've seen our construction costs go up by $8 million, from $32 million to $40 million in what is a very short amount of time in terms of the life cycle of the industry. The other thing we've been fighting is interest rates. So for instance, like the amount of debt that we can leverage, the loans that we can get from a bank to finance the project have decreased substantially, to the tune of anywhere between 10 and 30%, depending on if it's the 4% or the 9% project. So we've been facing pressure on both sides of the budget in that regard. And so while it sounds like we would be able to take that funding and create lower income units or more affordability within the project, those additional resources have just been able to keep the project afloat and moving toward closing, essentially keeping the budget balanced. So it's been a really challenging couple of years in that regard, and there's a lot of projects, frankly, that aren't going to get to continue to move forward at this time. The state only has so many resources, but we're fortunate that we are able to continue moving this forward, even though it doesn't look exactly like we'd hoped. The other thing I wanted to note is that we applied for additional funding with the state, and we actually only got a portion of it. There was an additional request we made that they denied. And that said, we still want to move this forward. Obviously, everybody wants this to move forward, and the county especially. So that's another reason why I'm making this request of you tonight. and why we've, gone back to every single third party we have. We've been working very closely with the contractor throughout this entire process. And, everybody, especially the contractor, they've been acting, as a partner in the deal to really help move it forward, because everybody, especially those people that are working on it, want it to happen. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Hairston.
I just wanted to know, did he mention how many bedrooms will be in the new units? I'm not sure if I missed it. If I did, my bad.
I flashed it up very quickly on the screen, but certainly it was a lot of information in a short amount of time. There will be, let me just get the breakdown. So the 44 units in the 9% project, they're all 2 and 3 bedroom units. Those stacked and townhouse buildings that you see out there in phase 1, those are all 2 and 3 bedroom units. So that is very much like a family focused project. And that consists of, I want to say it's about 60% 2 bedroom units. And then the 4% project, it does have some 1 bedroom units in it. So that unit, or that project, contains 28 1 bedroom units. And then it contains 60 2 bedroom units, and I believe 16 3 bedroom units. So both projects are primarily 2 bedroom units, right around the 950 square foot mark. It obviously varies between, different unit types. And then the 3 bedroom units are right around 1,300 square feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guillaume.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mr. Bateman. Can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So, Mr. Bateman, I wanted to go back to the construction fees that of course, you've accrued and you've explained why, and totally understand. I realized, and I already knew, I'm familiar with the project somewhat, but I know that Shabbat Ministries is also a partner in the project. So considering that they are a nonprofit of sorts, I'm wondering if you would know if there's been an attempt to reach out to the private sector for funding to try to bridge the gap.
There has. So we've worked most closely with our equity investors. So we're working with Bank of America.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate investor, if you will, is actually I'm sorry, it's not, I'm thinking of another project. But there's a group of investors that they syndicate through Bank of America, and then we refer to them as the investor. So we've worked closely with them on being able to increase the amount of price per tax credit they're essentially buying the tax credits for. And we've had some success in that, especially on the 4% project, in getting what I call better credit pricing, which has gone to help the project a little bit. The challenge with having a tax credit investor and having another investor involved is there gets to be a real mess in terms of priority and kind of who's bringing what and who's in what portion of the line, if you will. It's very difficult to layer in private investment with a tax credit investor in many circumstances. And then when you take into consideration the county and other parties that are also, especially the state agency, also at the table, they're interested in things like reversionary value and cash flow. And so there's kind of a lot of parties already very involved. And so we've done what we can with public agencies, applying for additional grants and funding, through our partners, through our nonprofit partners. But in terms of, additional private investment, there's just not a lot of room to bring somebody else on.
Got it. And the reason, so thank you for that. The reason why I ask is I did a similar project, similar to this, but almost 2 decades ago. So I don't want to age myself on this call, but I do know that there are groups, and like when you mentioned Baltimore, so there are foundations like the Weinberg Foundation, for example, that, they have they have a lot of money and they invest, of course, in their primary areas, Baltimore being one of them. DC has, there's several in DC, but I think it was like the Horning family. And so I'm trying to think of if Shabak Ministry, so not looking at Penrose for a second, because you're more of the investing side, but if maybe Shabak, if they haven't done so already, not saying that they haven't, but if they haven't, if they can leverage their 501c3 status and try to accumulate some dollars just to close that gap a little bit from foundations that have the capacity to make $1 million plus investment into the project. So just wanted to raise that as a suggestion if it hasn't been done so already, but just, that was it for me.
Yeah, thank you. We last year we applied for CDBG funding through Shabak. And then we looked pretty intently at it this year and applying through the RDA as well, because they're not a 501c3, but they're also a nonprofit technically. Right. And the uses of that funding in this prior application round were not eligible to be applied to this project. Otherwise, we certainly would have applied. And that's just, one example of one route that we've looked down. So we also sought Federal Home Loan Bank funds, but you need support from a bank who's looking to support in certain areas of the country on any given funding round. So we've looked at a lot of places, but we're always looking out, and I can definitely talk to Cynthia Terry again, and we're gonna, we'll keep looking, and if there's anything in particular that comes through City Council, by all means send it our way, and we'll look at it, and if we're at all, if there's any possibility that we're the project's eligible for it, then we'll certainly go after it.
Got it. And thank you for that. I do see other hands are up. I think I see the mayor's hand up, so I don't want to take up any more of your time, but maybe if it's okay with you, Mr. Bateman, we can connect offline. I'll just send you my email address in the chat, and I'll just think of whatever groups I may think of. I'll just send it your way offline that we can try to see what we can do to help.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman Guillaume. Mayor Cross.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mr. Bateman, for this wonderful presentation. I will say that with the City of Glenarden is a sustainable community, and with that, the state revitalization programs may be at your disposal under that umbrella. And with that, there are a level of funding programs, sir, that are community legacy type programs. There's also seed community development, anchor institution programs, and there's also programs for acquisition and rehabilitation of vacant residential properties. And with this particular property, as it's developing for our low income to retired income community, I believe that we may be able to find some additional support under that state revitalization program. COVID-19 did do us a favor in that it opened up a lot of the department state revitalization, and that ends the threat of homelessness. So what you are doing in that program may be able to be covered under that umbrella. And I don't know if you had considered that.
Yes, we look pretty hard at the state revitalization programs every year. Every June they come out. We've received several awards in other jurisdictions we've partnered with a couple housing authorities on the Eastern Shore, gotten several. Those were demolition funds, strategic demo funds, and yes, we've contemplated those. We looked at those in June, and for whatever reason, I don't recall why it wasn't a good fit to apply for Glen Arden this year. But we look at those every funding year, and if we have any eligible projects, we always put those in. We utilized strategic demo funds in Annapolis on a project recently, and so yes, we've looked into those, and we're eagerly awaiting the next funding round that's probably coming in about 7 months. And then I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then the other one, Mr. Bateman, is the Home Investment Partnership Program. That's on the federal level. I don't know if you all have any input into that, but it also targets affordable housing. The 2-3 bedrooms that you're talking about, and it actually supports state and also local governments in that goal of supporting affordable housing.
Mm-hmm. The 9% project, the county's contribution to that project, their portion of the $4.5 million that is going to the 9% project is $1.5 million in home funds, federal home funds.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Harry.
Yes, I guess my only issue is reaching out. I mean, I've been reaching out to citizens and people who've been asking about renting those the residences over at Glen Arden Hills, and a lot of times they call over there and they get absolutely no answers at all. They get no callbacks, and and I'm all I can tell them is that I know the office is over there. I don't know what the hours are, but I do know I've referred quite a few people over there, and it seemed like there's no communication between whoever's in that office and the person that's looking to rent from Penrose. So I mean, have I worked on that? I mean, because it's a major issue. One person really was looking for a place who really needed a place, and he could not get a call back or anything. I had him call y'all office in Baltimore or somewhere else, because nobody over there was answering any phones. So I just want to know if I addressed that issue, because that is a major issue, especially if you have people looking for affordable housing.
Yeah, certainly. No, that's disappointing to hear, frankly. Even if we're fully leased, I mean, that's just not best practice, certainly. So I will make sure I circle back with our management company and just have a conversation with them about that, because that's not right. I mean, they should be getting back to people regardless, and we'll certainly keep that in the forefront as we start to, as we're going through construction and we start to compile leasing information and build the website and all that kind of stuff, so that we're actually addressing the residents of Glen Arden and making sure that people who are reaching out to the project are getting a timely response. So I will make sure I follow up on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Also, I noticed that y'all have already graded the property and everything, but I know when y'all start construction, it's going to be raising a lot of dust. Y'all intend to keep that dust down to a minimum?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah. We, the mass grading, the site as it is now was done by the RDA, the Redevelopment Authority, and so there will be some very minor grading operations and fine grading that will go into. That will start in December when we start construction. So I'll make sure that I mean, there's a full sediment control plan and everything, and that helps protect the area around it. But I will make sure to make that comment to the contractors as a concern of City Council.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions? Well, Mr. Bateman, I want to thank you again for your presentation. Thank you for taking time out to meet with us, and we look forward to more things to come.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. So it was nice to see everyone again, and I'm hoping to be, I hope everyone gets to see bulldozers and heavy equipment out there in the next couple months, getting things going.
Okay. Well, you, Mr. Little, have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Next on the agenda, Delegate Jazz Lewis.
Sure thing. Well, first, thank you all for having me. It's good to see my Glenarden family out here. I wanted to talk about the legislative session and bond bills primarily. Some folks on here have been on the council for longer, may be more familiar, and others a little less so. So forgive me if I repeat some information that you all may already have, but I just wanted to, for those who don't know, articulate the process to help inform you guys, so also you can help your legislators as you all need things. So the way that it works is every year we pass what's called legislative bond initiatives. We pass the operating budget for the state separately from our capital process. All of our bond bills are part of the capital process. Typically, the governor allocates, in the O'Malley years, it was close to $20 to $25 million to capital projects for legislators in their districts. During the Hogan term, it was as low as $5 million per year. And then each of us would have to combat over projects in our district. What helped to guide which projects that our communities wanted largely was based off of how prepared we were when presenting them to our colleagues to seize the moment. Municipalities can get bond bills. Nonprofits can get bond bills. Churches cannot get bond bills in the state of Maryland, and for-profit entities cannot get bond bills as well. Okay. We've used bond bills to help Seat Pleasant build their city hall. We've used bond bills to help the mighty ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Fraternity Incorporated with their 501c3 that need a facility to educate young girls. The capital process, for those in the budgeting world, understand that goes to building or renovating spaces. So either building something completely new, adding something onto that already exists, or renovating a structure that is in place. Okay. There's no limit on what we can ask. We can ask for things as small as 25 grand or as much as $10 million. We'll get it or we won't get it. But the more money we ask for, more often than not, the state wants a match for it, right? So if we're asking for less than 100 grand, they typically don't care if we have a match. Wherever that match will come from, that match can come from, I think is very timely from the conversation and the question that I think Councilwoman Guillaume offered, like that match could come from a philanthropic partner to the city. It can come from tax revenue that you guys have generated and set aside, or some other vehicle. But typically, if we're going to ask for hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, the state's going to want to see that there is some other pool of capital spent here to lower their risk value. And that's primarily because, as I said, often we have hundreds upon hundreds of legislative bond requests, and we're trying to stretch those dollars as much as possible for everybody across the state, as well as for us in the district, because as you all know, the 24th district stretches from just shy of NASA on the northern end to as far south as the Census Bureau in Iverson Mall. Okay. We actually touch on 5 municipalities. We're more active in 4 of them. Of course, the city of Glenarden, which is in the center of the district, the city of Seat Pleasant, the towns of Capitol Heights and Fairmont Heights. But we actually go into the city of Bowie also. They got enough going on, so we don't get too involved in the day-to-day. District 23 gets a little bit more involved with them. But that's to say that as your legislators coming in, whether that's speaking on behalf of me, Senator Joanne Benson, Delegate Andrea Harrison, or soon to be Delegate Tiffany Alston, if you guys have legislative bond requests for us of something that you want built, added on, renovated, please talk to us early and often, When we get requests during session, it's just too late. You know, sometimes we can pull magic because other people are just unorganized, and that's happened before. I'll give you an example. Park and Planning didn't want to help us with an issue we had in Lake Arbor. So I got my colleagues to agree to help us segment off about $1 million in their own capital budget, right? They ended up realizing, the error of their ways in helping us with what they needed, but we also realized that they didn't need that million. So very quickly, I moved in to get $250,000 for Employee Prince George's to build a workforce development center in Suitland, which is the epicenter of our chronically unemployed in the county. I also got another $250,000 for Good Foods Market, which is a nonprofit grocery operator who opened in Seat Pleasant, Maryland, because that area is a food desert. And we gave a significant portion of Mission of Love, but we essentially had to jump on that day, that minute. It normally doesn't happen like that. It is very regimented and ahead of time. I think we should have a little bit more flexibility, knock on wood, with a more generous governor coming in, who I hope is Wes Moore. But I just want to articulate that's how it works. We typically introduce legislative bond initiatives. We pre-file them is how we call it, which means we send them in now before session starts. That gives our legislative staff time to essentially do some investigative research on their own and give a thumbs up or thumbs down to the chair of the Appropriations Committee, my chair. And it gives us a leg up. Once we have that, and actually let me pause, sending in a legislative bond initiative, what we typically need to send in with it is not a detailed work plan of everything we want done, just a summary of what you guys want to accomplish. You know, you're building in addition to the municipal center, or you want to, redo, a conference room inside of it or something. And it's going to cost this much. You got that, quote from this contractor who inspected it for you. That's generally all we need up front, with the contacts of the contractor and probably contacts for people at City Hall, the clerk, the manager, who what have you. We send that in. Then during session, there will be a time for us to go, and normally it'll just be us legislators, but we can have you all come with us. In the past, we would have representatives from the city with us. During pandemic, we just did it solo for obvious reasons. And we would very succinctly, in like 3 minutes or less, pitch what's the benefit to the public of us spending this money on that. Afterwards, I would fight to make sure we got that money. And that typically is how it works, okay? Once we get the money in the budget and it's approved, it isn't done yet. The next step is that anything over, I believe, $500,000 technically has to get approval from the Board of Public Works as well. Now, once it's gone through our legislative process, it's usually just a rubber stamp at that point. But that's another step. It will go on their schedule automatic. They typically vote it up or down, given who we're soon to have on the Board of Public Works. That will be good. We have a Prince Georgian and Treasurer Davis, right? Who's a former legislator and actually originally from our legislative district. So that won't be an issue. In our likely next comptroller and government, it shouldn't be an issue, but just stating that. Once they get the approval done, then it gets kicked over to the Department of General Services with the state, who will then cut the check to the city to pay for the work to get done, all right? So legislative session ends in April. That check will likely arrive sometime around early fall, all right? So that's to say that even if we get a bond bill in the legislature and it ends in April, the earliest that check will probably arrive will be September, October, just for your own planning with any contractors you guys might bring on, okay? So now that we're beginning of the next term, I just wanted to go over that because I know sometimes folks think there's all this money in Annapolis, some folks are getting it, some aren't. The only way we know that you all need projects is if you bring them to us. So There are some nonprofits that are always coming to us for asks for things, and to the degree that we can, we help them out. But we don't know what you guys are working on until you come to us and say, we need this, we need that. I'm looking at, and, it's actually very fortunate that I was here to listen to the representative from Penrose. Maybe there's something we can do resource-wise there, right? No promises, but it just gave me a thought. But we don't get the updates from them. You guys do, so those are the type of things that would be good for the delegation as a team to know. And I just wanted to make sure we were in communication on how it works. But as you guys need anything, please come to us. Please come to us. Okay. Did that make sense? Hopefully I didn't go too fast.
No, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. That does make a lot of sense, particularly for me, since this is my first time as a public official. So it's good to know how the process works. And I know we've been talking about several things in-house, so definitely gives us something to think about and a schedule to stick to so that we can get anything that we do want to you guys in a timely manner. So I appreciate that. Are there any questions from the council?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Harry.
How's it going, Delegate Lewis?
Good to see you, Councilman.
How's it going? Yeah, good to see you too. Question now, I found that most of the projects that get the bond bills or get what they want usually are the ones that are, let's say, almost shovel, that have more that's ready to go, versus those that just come in with an idea. It seems like, because I know we have applied for some bond bills in the past before, and they were just like ideas. But when we apply for some and we say, okay, this is what we're going to do, we got this, we got this, we got this, and showing them that we have more, that we're really ready to go on this project, it seems like we tend to get a bigger bang for our buck, to say.
That's right. That's right. I mean, generally, like I said, the projects being essentially shovel ready, you all, seeking out contractors who can give you a quote on how much it will cost, the timeline to build, that type of work helps us be able to deliver it much more quickly, frankly, than, let's say internal staff to the city says, well, we think this is how much it will cost. My staff are like, you sure? Because then if you come back next year asking for more, we're going to be annoyed, frankly.
Right.
They kind of like knowing that we've done the legwork on the front end, that this is the ask. And that's the other thing I forgot to add, just because we put in and say that this is the dollar figure we want or need, doesn't necessarily mean that they will fill to that amount anytime either, just because of resource constraints. So yeah, having it shovel ready, having your plans in order definitely helps us a lot. One of the other things I wanted to add too, because I did work for Congressman Hoyer for just under a decade, is, earmarks are back federally. People feel different ways about them, but now they're another avenue for you all to drive resources home. And coincidentally, one of the ways their process is actually very similar to ours now. They want to see that there is local support, financial support coming from other places. So securing a bond bill in the state legislature could actually help secure more money from the federal government if we end up lowering the amount. So that's something that's brand new too for you guys to consider. I think the whole of the city is in the 4th congressional. So that will be Glen Ivy. So when we come in with us, if we don't secure it all, then you can probably get a second bite of the apple by going to his office.
And we could use if we got a bond bill from the state, we can use that as the matching for the federal, correct?
Yep, that's exactly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
Right. Another question, and I know this is off topic. So when will we, and maybe I can meet you and talk to you about offline, about certain legislation that we would like to see maybe introduced? I guess my biggest thing is last year we had a really good expungement fair, and we really we helped out a lot of people, but one thing we ran into was a lot of people who had, gun charges, not violent gun charges, just holding, illegally holding, being arrested for holding a possession of a weapon. And they're not expungible. And not a lot of them were very upset about that, because I know one gentleman was like 20 years when he got arrested for it, and it's still in his record. So I was just looking at what can we do as a community and as the legislature, what can they do about something like that? So, but I can talk to you at offline.
Yeah, I'll give you, that's a continual fight. We have those of us who call ourselves like pragmatic progressives have every year with, our colleagues on, I just think it's simple economics. If you disincentivize people from being able to change the course of their life, what do you think they're going to do, frankly?
Right.
And if you make it hard for them to get gainful employment or start their own business or just move forward with their life, you keep them trapped in a cycle. And that's not political or anything. It's just, it just is what it is. Before, so in 2018, we had a crime omnibus bill, so to speak, where they wanted to do all these sentence enhancements, which I was not for. But one of the things that me and Delegate Janelle Wilkins from Montgomery County still negotiate, even though we ultimately voted against the bill, we negotiated in there was to allow for expungements of some felonies to begin with, which we didn't have at all. I think with a number of the new ones coming in, we should have the votes to push this conversation. The only problem is we're ultimately talking about two different things. Gun violence is a scourge on our community, but it's largely perpetrated by people on the front end of the justice system, right? Who really haven't gone in, or they're younger, frankly. Whereas you're talking about people who have served their time and have been out for a period of time. Right. But when we have this conversation, too often people conflate the two. And I think a number of my colleagues are scared that if you have a conversation about expunging the records of people of gun offenses, they're going to think that, we're being light on gun crime when, it's apples and oranges between, you're talking about someone who could be 37 to 50 compared to a teenager who just ran up on a senior to steal their car. It's not the same thing.
Right.
But we can talk more about it offline.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Okay. Chief Bryant.
Good afternoon, everyone. How you doing?
Good to see you, Chief.
How you doing, Delegate? Thank you very much. I had questions about bond bill because actually we've been working on it to try to get a new police facility. So actually I'll be meeting with Senator Benson and Vice President Ferguson been assisting me with this, and the mayor and city manager and everyone. So the information you gave was very informative, and we're trying to progress so we can actually get a police facility. So actually I'll be meeting with the architects on Friday. So the information was very informative. So thank you, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you for letting me know that too. So that's the other thing. That was a good reminder for me to flag. So often what happens is money is put in on one side of the legislature, whether it's the House or the Senate, and you have to defend it on the other. So if you guys are planning to send anything to Senator to put in as well, please send to me, even if she introduces it. I'm the only one on our team that's on a appropriating committee, and it helps me play defense for you if I know your money is there, right? If I don't, then sometimes things get taken. I didn't know, that was our money. So that's good to know that you guys are talking. Whatever you send to her, just let me know, and I'll make sure my team tracks it once it gets put in.
All right. Thanks again.
No problem.
Okay. Councilwoman Ferguson.
You can go ahead and let the mayor go, then I can go.
Okay. Mayor Cross.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ferguson. So thank you so much, Delegate Lewis. We appreciate your presentation. I do have a question relative to our schools. I know Judge Sylvania Woods, if you haven't taken a trip by there lately, go by and see the playground. I think that is an area for this bonds improvement. I don't know if they've made requests or even if they know that this is an available opportunity for them. But as one of the uses for those bonds, if it is an option to improve, you know, pre-existing playground areas and make them upgraded, I mean, we're to the point where, I mean, we'll be painting it with the Growing Green program that the county puts on. But I think it may be worth it, Delegate, just to take a look at that playground to see where we could improve for our children in Glenarden to have better playing environments as well. So I also want to take an opportunity to make a plug, if you will, for the Historical Society. I know that there's been tons of requests for building a historical society and maybe having a facility where historic preservation projects, even at the county level, can be served right here in the city of Glenarden. So if that is something that, you know, can be put on your scope as well, considering a museum, historic preservation projects in that same vein. So those two projects I would offer up, Delegate Lewis, for your consideration, sir, as strategic needs.
So on the school piece, the schools have a separate process for school construction through the state that what we would need to do for that, we would need to reach out to, I believe that's in my good friend, school board member Sheila Stafford's district. But we need to reach out to her for the school board to make that a priority because the way that works is the school board puts together their capital improvement priorities, which the school CEO sends to the county executive and her team submits to the state. Okay. And then we interact with all of them the same way. Once it's in there though, I can move it up or down the list. But they do school construction on another streamlined process as well as school renovations. But that is a good flag, and I'm gonna make a note for me to talk to our school board member about that. And I'm sure you guys have, but I'll circle back with her as well. On the Historical Society, so I'm in complete support of that. You know, growing up here, you know, when you look at the footprint, the political footprint of Glenarden in this county, in this state, you know, so many roads leads back to the great city of Glenarden in multiple ways. I mean, it was the area to which the Black Power political class emanated from in Prince George's County before, you know, African Americans end up taking the majority over. So many meetings as people were trying to strategize how do we make our schools and county more equitable happened in the basements of people living in the city of Glenarden. I think that is long overdue. Like I was saying before, though, on the planning, I can happily fight for a bond bill, but I can't hire the contracting firm to put together the plans and all of that. You know, as your legislator, I'm not given a budget to do any of that. But I would happily help even source some funds, you know, and we can get grants from the state planning department and other people to help with that too. And then I can come back and get the bond bill for it. And I have similar ambitions for Sea Pleasant, Fairmount Heights, and Capitol Heights. You know, I think of these historic communities that as you walk through them, you should be able to see that the history there through murals and public art and parks that the people deserve to have. But we have to work in partnership with each other on how to do that. So one of the things I do often, and I'm just giving an example of Good Foods Market, I just did this, is as organizations and even the city reaches out to the state for various grants and whatnot, please let us know as a delegation, particularly because I sit on the appropriations committee. All the people you're asking for money for comes to me and ask for money. So it's very helpful when before we have a briefing, I have a list that I go through and I check it twice, you know? And I bring up things like when WMATA comes to us for resources, I happen to always talk about transit-oriented development along the Blue Line, and how not only do we need transit-oriented development, we need the people who are building these projects to be folks of color in the ownership model of who's building these. And lo and behold, they come up with plans. It's funny how that works, so I will add that to my list, and we will continue to work together. But I know this is the start. Some of the council members I know are a little newer, and I just want to provide some education too, so that you all know how best we as a delegation can assist and partner with you guys on behalf of the city of Glenarden.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just one more question for Delegate Lewis.
Well, 1 second, because I was going to go to Councilwoman Ferguson first.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll come back to you. Councilwoman Ferguson. You're on mute.
Oh, you're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
I see. Good evening. I just wanted to say that I had reached out to your your assistant on, I think it was last Thursday. I spoke with Senator Benson at Glenarden today, and we had talked about some things concerning the bond bill. So she was saying I'm going to try to get a meeting with you, Harrison, and her, and she said y'all could come out. So she definitely told us that get everything, basically what you said, get everything together and have it so that y'all will be able to make a presentation. So I'll be sending out an email and get some dates, or either get the clerk to send out and to coordinate a meeting in Glenarden.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilman Harry?
Yes, Delegate Lewis, I guess my time dealing with bond bills and, sitting on the council, it seems like, isn't it best that we come as a unified body with one project versus throwing a whole bunch of projects at you?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, fewer. Well, I guess it depends on the dollar figures of the projects we're talking about. If you're asking for, a couple of projects that are like 50 grand a piece, it may not matter too much. But if a couple in there are on the higher end to several $100,000 to $1 million or so, then the preference would be focusing in on that one priority of you all. And it's actually a great point. I will tell you is the preference of the team, me, the other delegates in the center, that whatever you all ask us to work on, you all are in agreement of, because we never want to be working out of lockstep together where one delegate has put in a bond bill for you all and another one is put in a different one, and then we find out you all are in disagreement of some sort, because it makes our delegation look crazy in Annapolis. And frankly, my colleagues use it as an excuse to not fund stuff to get more money for their districts, because I do it too, frankly, when I look at other districts and their stuff is in disorder, I'm like, well, clearly they're not ready for this money. My district is, it's a fight, and I'm gonna fight for my team. To answer your point, to degree possible, if you guys could, put together a list of projects and priority, it's not saying that you guys can say this is the only thing we want, but like, this is the number one thing we want. And then as a delegation, hopefully you give us the due diligence and respect of allowing us to figure out, would we push all of them or just the one, because we're working in partnership with each other.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guillaume.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Delegate Lewis, for taking the time to break everything down for us. I have a quick question. Since they're set up more as quasi-government, meaning they don't report to us, I'm speaking specifically about the Glenarden Housing Authority. And so this is me just asking as a citizen of Glenarden, not as a legislator at all. So knowing that we work side by side, if anything, as far as serving the community, right? And seeing that the properties, specifically on Hawkins Manor, are in need of capital repair, is there any way that they can take advantage of the bond bill?
Absolutely.
Okay, and would it, oh, I'm sorry, and would it be stronger, would it work stronger in their favor if they were to just come at it alone or with, and again, I'm just thinking about like if there's a scoring method of some sorts, like if city council were in support of their capital project, if we were to submit something alongside with them to say that we support their capital improvement initiative, or should it just be, or is it just like, no, they just provide us with some specs or whatever, and we'll look at it on our own. City council doesn't need to get involved.
Letters of support are always welcome because it shows that, you know, the community is behind the project.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so very much. I'm not sure if anybody from Glenarm Housing is on this call, but knowing that this meeting is being recorded, hopefully they'll see this part of the meeting. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Well, thank you, Delegate Lewis. Greatly appreciate your presence and this very informative presentation.
No problem. You all have a great night. Reach out to me anytime. I'm gonna leave my contact in the chat.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda are the minutes dating back to 12/06/2021. These minutes will be presented at the regular session for voting. So please take a look, review. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we can address them. Unless you have some now, we could address them now. Next up, it's the legislative section. Councilman Harris, I believe both of these are yours. So do you want to take the lead on these?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the first piece of legislation is an ordinance to adopt procedures for residential parking permit guidelines. I think parking in the city of Glenarm, especially over in my ward, is getting completely out of control. We have people who are parking commercial vehicles in the driveway and parking their regular cars on the street. I'm getting complaints from citizens who say they can't have people even visit their house because there's, you know, a house would have 8 cars because houses are being subdivided. Especially over here in my ward, because we have a lot of split levels. So they subdivide the upstairs and the downstairs into apartments, and the ones that have basements, they turn into apartments. So you got more than one family living in these houses. And it's completely out of control. And I think the residents should have a say, or the citizens should have a say, whether they allow for permit parking on the streets. This legislation actually gives them that say. They can file a petition with the city saying, hey, we would like permit parking. Permit parking offers 2 visitor passes and 1 caretaker pass. I think that it's definitely needed. I mean, it's really out of control. It really is, and it seems like nothing's being done about it. A lot of people have tags that are from DC and Virginia, you know, and you know they've been parking on the streets for months and months at a time. I thought there's a law that you had to change the tags over at a certain time. But the constant fact that these houses are being rented, single family homes are being used as multi-family homes, is causing a major disruption in this community. I mean, Fifth Avenue and Delwood, you could barely get down because there's cars on both sides packed to the brim, you know, cars in driveways, you know, work vehicles, commercial vehicles. All of that stuff is over here, and these commercial vehicles aren't even being ticketed and towed. They should be getting ticketed based on our ordinance that we have. So I just think we should get a citizen's opportunity to be able to say whether they want permit parking on their street, and that's what this legislation would do. It allows for citizens that request permit parking by petition, or it allows for the council to designate streets with permit parking. So I just brought this up just for consideration. So and that's basically it with that piece of legislation.
Okay, and that's both pieces of legislation?
That's just one piece of legislation. The other piece of legislation is different. The other piece of legislation is commercial vehicles.
Well, 1 second. I want to I'll let you address that one, but just wanted to see their hands so we can address them individually. And you do have screen share privileges if you want to show the legislation that you're working on. So are you? I'm sorry?
I don't have it up. Could you pull it up or?
Yeah, no, I can pull it up.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I don't have it up.
All right, which one is it? Is it the
Residential parking,
okay, so I see the commercial parking and the
that one right there. That's it, yeah.
commercial parking?
No, the residential parking permit. That's the first one I spoke on.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, first hand up I have is Councilwoman Fareed.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilman Herring. I think this is a fine piece of legislation. I think it's much needed in this city, and I'm very glad that you brought this forward. I just wanted some additional context on the history behind it. What I was trying to understand as I was reading this is what would be sort of the qualifications or the criteria for the city to say, you know, this street is designated as permit parking, as opposed to when citizens would put a petition forth. I'm just trying to gauge. I'm thinking of a particular street in my ward that is not yet something that the city can act on because the streets haven't been turned over yet, but Smithview Place, we constantly have issues on that street with the fact that there are cars parked. Emergency vehicles can't get through, the garbage truck can't get through. It is definitely a something to address that, but I'm not sure, it's not entirely clear to me how we would go about, the city would go about designating which streets should have that.
I guess I think the biggest criteria is overflow parking. I mean, when you just go down, when you can ride down a street and you see that there's, I mean, you can basically see when there's overflow parking because there's like 8 cars like in front of one house. You know, a number of streets like over here on Fisk Avenue in Delwood, I mean, you can barely get up the street because there's so many cars, there's so many commercial vehicles, there's so many vehicles parked on the street. And also gauge it from the citizens that I talked to. You know, a lot of the citizens I talked to saying, I can't, my people can't visit me. They got to park all the way down at the bottom of the hill and walk up because they can't park in front of my house because the house next door to me got 8 cars and there's nowhere to park. And they park on, not only do they park on their side, they park on the opposite side of the street also. So they're taking up space in front of the people's houses over there. So, I mean, I feel that if we see it's a major issue and our constituents are complaining about it, then I think that's the time for the city to kick in and do what they feel is necessary, which is fair and just. I mean, everybody will have the same number of permits. It isn't like it'll be unfair to anybody. It's just that something that people have to, you know, be, you know, more courteous to their neighbors. I mean, that was a big issue when we brought it up last time, is that, you know, before, you know, you were a neighbor, you didn't park in front of somebody else's house. You know, you left that front of their house, you know, and it was an unwritten rule, but that's what you did. Now that people coming in now, they don't care. They say it's a public street. I can park where I want to park. And I don't care if I park in front of your house or if I park in front of my house and in somebody else's house. So I guess I think it comes down to, you know, listening to your constituents and engaging with how they feel about it. Because a lot of them do tell me about, you know, as I'm going through the city and, you know, they call me up or they email me and, you know, and they tell other people, you know, I can't park on my streets. So, I mean, and like I said, a lot of times I can just tell.
Okay, one just follow-up question on that. If we identify a street that we think should be, you know, like say, for example, Jeff Road, now it's become a through street since Glenarm Parkway is open on that side and people can pass through. Would that need to, if we say, okay, Jeff is going to be one, will we need to then have a public hearing for it, or do we just have the authority under this ordinance to just go ahead and make that designation?
Under this ordinance, we can go ahead and make that designation. We don't have to. I mean, it'll be good. You can have it. We can have it as a public hearing if you want to add that feature to it. Citizens know. Usually, when you do that, you usually give people at least a 30-day notice that this is going to happen, and you know, nobody will get ticketed or towed in that 30-day, you know, grace period.
Okay.
But we notify everybody of what's happening.
And sorry, one more. The 2 permits plus the one caregiver, those are free of charge?
Yes, unless they lose them, to replace them, then they have to pay. They get those free, but replacements will cost. I think the replacements are like $25 or something like that.
And sorry, I keep saying one last question, but are they free even if they're say behind in taxes or have any other kind of fees that they owe to the city? They're still free?
They're still free, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't stipulate, anything like that.
Okay, I see you don't have a co-sponsor. If you are looking for one, I'd be willing to co-sponsor with you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, and then that's it. Thank you. I will get a list together because there are definitely some streets I can think of. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Fareed. Councilwoman Jones.
Good evening to everyone again. Thank you, Councilman Curtis. Councilman Herring, I do agree with you on this legislation as far as that there are some streets in Ward 1, such as Grant, Fisk, Delwood, that have a crowding problem. And I think what happened was this residential parking plan came into fruition because of the American Legion and the streets around it. And then when the Gold Room was really booming with cabarets, the streets surrounding the Gold Room and the streets surrounding the American Legion, those persons weren't able to park when they came in. So this is how this came about. The only thing that I see that may be an issue, because most of the time when we see all of this overcrowding of parking is in the evening and on the weekends, because that's when these persons come home from their various places of employment. So what are we going to do for enforcement? I mean, code enforcement is working from, I think, till 5 p.m. and that'll be fine for them. And on the weekend, I think they only work till 6 p.m. So, but it's after those hours that the enforcement would have to come about. So what are we going to do about enforcement in the evenings?
Well, I mean, like apartment complexes and other businesses do. You hire a tow truck company and they ride around and see if you don't have a permit in the window, your car gets towed.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they would love to have a contract like that.
Okay. All right. Is that something that you're going to discuss with the police department and our police department?
Well, I would discuss it with the council and the police department because it's a contract I need to discuss and see if that's what we want to do.
Okay. And then you said the council can step in and declare a street that should be parking and come under this residential parking plan. What if you get a contingency of residents on that street, maybe 75%, that do not want to participate in that type of program? They feel like their street it's not necessary for their street. What happens then?
Well, I mean, that's the decision the council has to make. If the council feel that it's needed, then the council has to do it. Sometimes you got to do the best thing, do what's in the best interest of your citizens, even though they feel it may not be the best thing. Or you listen to your citizens and say, okay, we hear you, we're not going to do it. That's again, it comes down to the council and how they feel about it. Each council member has a vote on it.
Okay, I just wanted to know if there was that flexibility, and that flexibility would be in this decision. And then the other thing on page 3 of the residential parking plan, it says under applicants for parking permits, and then it goes to applicants for parking permits will be required to complete a city provided application and present proof of residence. And it says under here a rental agreement. So if they present a rental agreement, would they have to also present their county rental agreement to say that that house can be rented? Or are you saying this is a rental agreement between the owner and the person that lives there?
Well, it'll be a rental agreement between the owner and the person that lives there, but I think code enforcement need to also be involved in that to make sure that that house is applied for rental status with the county.
Right. And
it's going to be a partnership with every department, really.
Okay. All right. Those were my questions or concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. Chief Bryant?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I think there's some great legislation by Councilman Herring. As we know that I know since I've been there, we've getting a lot of calls for especially commercial vehicles, and my guys been writing citations in reference to these vehicles. One in particular that are parked in this shopping center parking lot and leave a vehicle there over the weekend. So actually it got broken into twice in addition to us giving citations. But this is some great legislation. And like Councilman Herron did say, hiring a tow crane company to get these vehicles out because it's quite a number of them. So we can't put all our attention on that when we got other things to do too, with serving citizens, call for service and so forth. So I totally agree with it. And I'll be ready to discuss any further and how we can get a plan going. But the biggest thing is, cooperating with one another, coming up with a plan and implementing it. And my officers would be happy to hear that also. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. I don't know these mute buttons. Goodness gracious. Ms. Jones, is your hand still up?
No, I have another question. So Councilman Herring, the only thing that you're changing from the original, ordinance 03-2019 to this ordinance 2023 is the procedures and guidelines is being implemented with this piece of legislation. Other than that, there's no other wording that's being changed.
Exactly, just the procedures.
Are being okay, included. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Herring, your second legislation.
Okay, the second piece of legislation is it's really amending the commercial vehicle legislation, because it seems like we're getting caught in we're like a hamster on a wheel running around on this. Basically, our commercial legislation actually is a good piece of legislation because the county's legislation on commercial vehicles in weight classes clearly states that it ends, their legislation does not apply to municipalities because municipalities write their own legislation. So we write this legislation and it goes down to, when they write the tickets, it goes down to the court. They're like, oh, well, this vehicle isn't a commercial vehicle because it's only weighs so much, and it doesn't meet the commercial weight class. So one way I feel that we need to look at this and get around this is just say commercial equipment and change it to commercial equipment. You don't have to have a weight class for commercial equipment. If there's commercial equipment on the street, be it a commercial vehicle or a commercial truck, commercial whatever, it could be cited. I think that again, we have this issue with these commercial vehicles in the community, in the neighborhood, and the legislation also allows for us to ticket them in their driveways. If they got it in the driveway, they can be ticketed. It clearly says in the legislation they can go into city property, residential property, and ticket a vehicle that's in the driveway if it's a commercial vehicle. But it's just like a lot of confusion on what's a commercial vehicle, how much weight does it, how much weight is the vehicle? Is it a commercial vehicle? Is it not a commercial vehicle? Does it fall under the county? Does it not fall under the county? Does it fall under the state? And all of this is being done, when clearly we're, as a municipality, state law says that we can form our own laws and our own codes that should be upheld by the circuit court, but judges are not looking at it that way. So I just think that we need to change the legislation and just say commercial equipment and then be done with it. And it is what it is. You don't have to worry about a weight class when it comes down to commercial equipment. So that's what I'm trying to do with this, because these vehicles have got to get out the city. They're coming back. We tried before, and now they're coming back in even bigger than before. And that's one of the reasons why we have the overflow parking, because they're parking commercial vehicles in the driveways, putting personal vehicles on the street. Along with renting rooms. It's it's out of control again. That's it's completely out of control. So that's what this legislation is supposed to do, try to get those commercial vehicles out of the city, get commercial equipment, and this is not only vehicles, but trailers too. So we need to look at all of that.
Okay. All right. Councilwoman Guillaume.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilman Herring, for this legislation. I just have a question for this particular legislation, because to me, it's almost like a catch-22, because there are certain areas where I do believe it is excessive. I've seen, particularly in Ward 1, and you mentioned one street in particular, I've seen it on Fisk. The other aspect of that is I've also seen or know particularly families who work for Washington Gas, for example, and they have those vehicles, and that's what they use to pay their bills, as far as their mortgage is concerned. So I just feel like this particular legislation, it catches, while it catches people in a conundrum, because there are those folks who work for Pepco, for the telephone companies, and who work for emergency, utility companies. And if we were to pass this particular legislation, then what would that mean for their employment and their livelihood? That's the only caveat that I have with this particular legislation. So don't know if you've given some thought or consideration to that you could possibly offer. So if they're listening, they can hopefully hear what we're thinking here.
Honestly, with me, it's all commercial vehicles, because when you start making exceptions, you run into a problem. You make exceptions for utilities, then now somebody's going to complain and say, well, this is my livelihood. And that's what they said last time we brought the legislation to the floor. They said, this is my livelihood. This is what I do. I need my vehicle. And I'm like, that's all well and good. I mean, one resident I know down on Delwood, they basically run a business out of their house. They park all their commercial vehicles down there, and they say they need to run their business. If workers come, pick up the vans here in Glen Arden, they park their cars down on Delwood, and then they leave the city. So I'm a zero tolerance person. Me personally, it could be something looked at, but I want to have exceptions in there. But I guarantee you get one exception, everybody else gonna want an exception also. So something we can look into. It's time to look it over, and we can discuss it. Only want to come up for a first reading, and then you still got a second reading to go, which is 30 days later. So
okay, thank you.
All right.
Jeez. Councilwoman Jones.
Again, Mr. Herring, Councilman Herring. So are you talking about vehicles that have the writing on the side that says Homes Heating and Air Conditioning Truck, or the vans? Because I think that's where the problem also came in, is that because the vans didn't weigh 1.5 or less than 1.5 tons. I think when in discussion with former Chief O'Donnell, he would say it was the weight that is the reason. So are we addressing that this time, or?
That's what I want to address this time, just saying commercial equipment, because the weight was the issue before. What's 1.5 tons?
Right.
It was not 1.5 tons. It was coming in under 1.5 tons, and that's what was getting us. Because a lot of people use work trucks that are under 1.5 tons, but they're still work trucks. They're still commercial vehicles. And with the state always saying, well, this is not considered a commercial vehicle because of its weight, even though as a municipality, we don't have to follow that because we write our own laws, they still recognize that.
Okay, so it's not necessarily going to be because it has writing on the side, or the weight is going to be what kind of equipment it is to be being used.
Right.
Okay. So, and then I'm not, I don't know how many of the utilities are home garaging nowadays. I did see the one Washington Gas truck, but I haven't seen, there was one Verizon truck on Grant, but I'm not sure that they're letting them home garage anymore since the pandemic has been lifted. So that's something that we can find out which utilities are home garaging and how many we do have in the city that are actually home garaging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. Are there other comments? Okay. Well, thank you, Councilman Harry. Sorry. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which I lost it for a second. Topics of discussion. Site development concept plan for Ruby Lockhart Boulevard. Ms. Barber.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I had received in the mail a notification from Boulevard Engineering, and it is regarding a site development concept plan for the location site at Ruby Lockhart Boulevard and St. Joseph's Drive. So I've been trying to get in touch with the engineer of the project for the past couple of weeks since I received this, and I have not been able to get in touch with them. I did contact DPI and submit an MPIA request for a copy of the site development concept plan and the site development plan itself. So when I get that in, I'll be more than happy to share that with you all. But right now, that's all the information that I have to report. But I did want to make you all aware that that was received in this office.
Thank you. Any Councilman Harry?
Yeah, so is that that's the development that's being built across the street from the church?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Next up, we have the GHA Christmas party. Councilman Hairston.
Did Chief Brian, do you got a question or your hand is up? I see Mayor Cross hand up too.
Chief Bryant's hand's been up since the last one. I think he just left it up there, but Chief
Like,
Bryant.
your arm hurt, Chief.
Okay, and Mayor Cross, did you have something related to the Bowler site development plan?
Yeah, so for the Ruby Lockhart site, we actually went and spoke to developers when we were doing the site plan or the site mapping for that environment. And one of the things that we found out, and City Manager Barber, you wasn't here at that time, so just, you know, some backstop. We actually did go to the committee meeting. I believe Councilwoman Fareed went there. I think Councilman Curtis was on the line as well. But I know we spoke to the developers and we spoke to the planning committee on behalf of county relative to the intent of that area at Ruby Lockhart, essentially Woodmore Overlook and Woodmore Commons. Where we are is we are just being informed at this point because of that development and phase that it's in. There's very little that we can do as much as approve whether or not we like it or don't like it as far as its look. Now, what we are is we are being informed because we are in the vicinity of that development. And as you'll know, what's already there is a Royal Farms. What will come is a Chick-fil-A and Arby's. 7-Eleven will be built, and about 1,500 more unit capacities will be built in that area. So we talked to the county particularly about what's the infrastructure going to look like, because if you can imagine the 1,500 new residents in the Mitchellville Bowie area, not even associated with Woodmore, with the Glen Arden area, will converge on our shopping center. Okay, Woodmore Town Center at Glen Arden, the shopping center there, that's the only real shopping center aside from Shoppers, which is on up MD 202 in Largo. So betwixt those two areas, I would say as a community, we need to be concerned with not only the infrastructure that's coming, which is not healthy food, which is not a grocery store, but more fast foods and more gas stations, which is possibly a concern for cancerous and other, hazardous byproducts that are crafted when you put those next to housing units, but also schools. So that is something that we've already talked to Shayla Stafford Adams about as our representative for the school board, and the need to make sure that while the development is wonderful, the infrastructure and the community cost of living for those that are already on the ground is not suffering. So thank you for that. But yeah, we've gone to the planning committee, we've gone to DPI, and we've also gone before the county on this effort. And that's one of the things that they came back with. This is already a done deal from as early as 2012.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cross. Councilwoman Fareed.
Thank you. I actually think that this property is in the city of Glen Arden. I believe this is the one that is across from LA Fitness, and that lot is adjacent to the church. So it's across the street from where that other development is. So if you're coming out from Best Buy and Starbucks over on that side, like where you go to make the right onto St. Joseph's, that lot there, that is scheduled to be apartment buildings. And I believe that's what this is, Bowler. The site development plan is for that space in Glen Arden.
Correct, but I think as far as
One
management,
second, one
not
second.
there.
Sorry.
No, just, that's fine. So there could be orders. You just recognize the chair, and then I'll call on different people. But Mayor Cross, go ahead. I didn't hear what you were saying. I dropped something at the same time that you said, but you go ahead.
I'm sorry, thank you, Council President. So that area, based on the letter that we received, is just a notification of work going to happen. But it's another one of those, like we got the notification about work that was about to happen in the area in Mitchellville. So as far as the planning committee is concerned, the impact that we will have to be able to say, no, we don't want that, or we want to have changes, or we need other things is limited. And I think that's where I was going with that. But one of the things I do want us to do with this is go back to the county and ask for more infrastructure and more schools, because at this point, with the amount of houses that's coming, we do not have any way of accommodating. Right now, we in some of our elementary schools are approaching 30 to 35 students per teacher, and that's unsafe.
Thank you, Mayor Cross. Councilwoman Fareed, did you have anything else?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. And I agree with all of those statements around what our concerns would be with the space. My biggest concern is around when are we going to see a site plan? What are we expecting to be there? I would like for us to be having the same types of conversations with Bowler as we had with Penrose, as an example. So what I know council city manager said she was not able to contact them. And it didn't look like there was even any contact information on the letterhead that they sent over. Is there someone at DPI that we can contact, City Manager Barbara, to find out what's going on and make sure that we are apprised of the development plan?
So when I contacted DPI, what the young lady instructed me to do was to submit that MPIA request.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did on the 28th.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mr. President, Mayor.
Councilman Harry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clarification on the piece of property that we are actually talking about. So are we talking about the property behind St. Joseph's Church? We talking about property across the street?
I'll let Ms. Barber answer. Ms. Barber?
So because it indicated that it was at Ruby Lockhart Boulevard and St. Joseph's Drive, my assumption is that it was the 20 acres where the apartments are slated to go. Since this did mention that it was going to be building 2 multifamily buildings and associated site improvements. But when I receive the information from DPI, I'll be able to more accurately state which parcel that it really is.
Okay, because I mean, this is a major, major concern if it's in the city of Glenarden. Because we should have been notified that this was being built. We should have been notified at conceptual site plan stage that this was coming into the city of Glenarden. We're talking about another, what, 400, 500 more homes in this apartment complex that they're talking about building. I know they were talking about building it before. It's supposed to originally have gone over there by the subway in that area where Nordstrom's Rack and stuff is. But they moved it, they had the detailed site plan changed to move it over there behind the church. And I think if there's anything that size coming into the city, we definitely need to know about it. And they've never gotten with us if it is in the city, and we need to contest the whole plan, because again, we should be at the very beginning of these apartment buildings. The last time a company came to the city of Glenarden and wanted to build apartments, it was Lincoln Properties. And Lincoln Properties specializes in low income, not affordable income, low income apartments, which is what we just destroyed over in where Glenarden Hills was. So we need to have a say on what's going on at that piece of property and whether we want it in the city. So we just need to really identify where it's going, because they should have gotten in touch with the city. They should have met with the city. That's one of the requirements that they have, if it is in the city, that they met with the city on this project. And I don't ever remember no meetings on that project at all. You know, it was always, the land is always sat vacant. And that's another issue I have also, because the Urban Edge, who is the new owners of that property, should have come to us if they want to do something like that. So I think we definitely need to get clarification, because if they're building apartment buildings and they're not to our liking, we basically need to stop it, you know, and find out exactly what's going on, you know, in our community. So, yeah, or another thing too, and that's for them telling you need to put in an NPIA request is absolutely crazy. As the city manager of a municipality, they should email you that right away. You shouldn't have to put in no NPIA request. And I'm gonna tell you honestly, what that sounds like, and we really need to get a hold of that, is if we put in an NPIA request, they got 30 days to get us that information. If our deadline ends in that 30 days for us to appeal the decision there, we out of luck. So somebody better drive their car down to DPI and find out what's going on. Because like I say, if we miss that deadline, we can't appeal it. It's locked in, you know? So we need to find out what's going on, and somebody need to go down there and get the CSP for that site, so we know exactly what's going on down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harry. So I take it that that's going to happen this week, Ms. Barber?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, now it's GHA Christmas party. Councilman Harrison.
All right, now I ain't gonna hold you all night. A few weeks back, Ms. Cheryl from the GHA, she reached out to me and would like to host a holiday party in partnership with Shabak and the City Council. First thing, she needs space, so she was wondering if she can use the Gold Room and or the Nutrition Center gratis. She was looking for the date of Wednesday, December 21st from 6 to 8, and would like to decorate the room, have dinner, and give gifts. She's also on a call in case, you know, you guys got any questions for her, but she basically was trying to see if she can get the council support to make this happen.
I'm sorry, who did you say this was?
Ms. Cheryl, the GHA.
Okay, thank you. Any, Councilwoman Jones, was that hand for
yes, sir, thank you. is this for the residents of the Glenarden Housing Authority or for the staff or for the children?
The residents and the children, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Yes, the residents.
Just the residents?
The residents are the children. It's for all 60 households.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And the date was December the
21st.
It was the 21st,
21st.
from 6
Any
p.m. to 8 p.m.
any opposition? Councilwoman Guillaume.
So to answer your question, Council President, no, I don't have any opposition. I just had a question. I know Councilman Harrison said they were GHA is looking for support. So what exactly are the support look like?
She just needed the space, really the space, and she wanted the partnership, to collaborate with us on it. They need a space to house it in.
Gotcha. So space meeting gratis? Is that more specific?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any opposition to GHA gratis status for December 21st, 6 p.m. Okay. All right. Councilman Harrison, was that it for that subject?
Yes.
All right. Next up, retreat. Councilman Harrison.
All right. So as far as the retreat go, I just wanted to see where we were with that, because I know we was talking about doing it like September 30th, but I never heard anything back about that. So I just wanted to see, where we were with that.
We looked around for a consultant, so we did hold that date. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any consultants to meet with us on that date. And so now I have an email out to another person who was recommended to us to get a consultant who could help us with the strategic plan and facilitate our meeting. So once I meet with that individual and get an idea of what it would take, then we'll put another poll out on the dates that'll be best for the council. Open to any other suggestions that any other council members have.
So I got a question or either a suggestion. I think we should meet. I'm not gonna say like sooner than later, but sooner than later. Like I know the holiday season is coming, but I think we should meet before January roll around. I know we got Thanksgiving and we got Christmas and all, but I think it'd be good if we was able to make this happen before the new year comes.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Guillaume, did you have a comment?
I did not. I forgot my hand to lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilman Herring, thank you.
Yeah, I just like to ask that, we just keep abreast of what's going on, because we heard about it and then we heard nothing, where we were, no progress reports, no updates or anything on that. So I just like to ask that we be kept abreast of what's what with this retreat and where we are with it. If there's an issue, maybe some of us can reach out and help out or something if we gotta, find somebody. But I think, we just need to be made aware of what's what, because it just went silent. I know we brought it up. I know we had a date. Then from that point to this point, we didn't hear anything about it. So I was wondering the same thing where we were with it. So.
Oh, no, completely valid. Totally on me. I apologize. I'll make sure that I'll keep everyone abreast of what's going on.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add one more thing before we move on?
Sure.
Like transparently, do anybody just think that it's a waste of time? Like I know why I was asking for it is just because I thought it'll make us become a unified body better and make us be able to communicate along the board better. But transparently, if anybody think that it's a waste or they're not interested, feel free to voice your opinion.
Councilman Fareed?
Yes, I think that what I'd be looking for is to have some specific goals in mind for the day. If we're going to talk about our strategic plan and what we want to focus on together, what type of legislation we want to put forward to support that plan, that's definitely something I'm in support of. I think that outside of that, I'm not sure without clear objectives that the day would be very productive. So I'm open to one just so long as we're very clear on what the expected outcomes of the day are.
I agree.
Thank you. And part of that will be in discussion with the consultant when the individual gets back with me, who has done this with other municipalities. And I'll bring that back to you guys. And yeah, structure will be key because I don't want to waste anybody's time. But I think it's a good idea. So, all right. Cancer awareness event Saturday, October 29th. Councilman Hairston.
All right, so with that, I'm just going to basically give a few updates. October 29th is the date from 11 to 4. I went to LA Fitness and reached out to them so they can come out and talk about, just the importance of keeping your health up. They said that they had come out, also reached out to a painter that was going to decorate some nice stuff as far as things that's pertaining to cancer awareness. Of course, again, I think this is a big issue in our community, and everybody has been like affected by this in some type of way personally, with whether that's be a family member, a friend, or whatnot. Also, huge shout out to Ms. Schultz. She reached out to Picket Fences and we were able to get in touch with them. So also basically I wanted to know if any other council members like reached out to anyone or they have any other information to share, but I was going to pass it over to Councilman Herring because he's actually been running the situation with the picket fences. So I'm gonna pass it his way, but that's all I really had on my end.
Okay, Councilman Harris.
Yeah, we reached out to picket fences, and they basically gonna picket fences along with another organization called 2 for 2 Boobs. They both are organizations that, well, 2 for 2 Boobs basically is an organization that deals with breast cancer and breast cancer awareness. And picket fences also has a lot of good contacts. Again, kudos to Ms. Schultz for getting us in contact with them, because they're very excited about having, working with the city on this. So we were able to get Dr. Rita Gupta from Doctors Hospital. She's going to be a speaker. And we also got Dr. Hampton from Cherry Blossoms. She says she can participate and she's going to be a speaker. So we got some pretty good speakers. Picket fences and 2 boobs for 2 for 2 boobs. They will be, they're looking for a well-rounded panel, because I did ask that they have somebody, not only for breast cancer, but also for prostate cancer and colon cancer. We're looking at getting people to come out, informational booths to come out. So we're reaching out to them. We just told them we want to focus on, prevention, diagnosis, and cancer awareness. Like Councilman Harrison said, I don't know a family that hasn't been touched by one of the 3. So, we're moving full steam ahead with that. I think it's going to be a nice program, honestly. I think we got some people that are very excited about having it and hosting it and working with us on it. And that's about it. That's where we are with that right now.
So are you looking for more members for the panel?
They're actually reaching out for us to get in. They're going to actually pull the panel together. So
Okay.
I'm going to see what they have so far. They actually reached out to survivors and some other doctors. We do need people that may want to set up informational tables, to put out information on, cancer, different types of cancers and everything, and be able to speak to people. One thing I was thinking that we would like, I would talk to picket fences and 2 booths with 2 is like maybe have like a corner back in the back where, you can talk to a doctor, privately, So, it's a number of things we're throwing out there, but yeah, we're just trying to get, like I said, we're just trying to get people that can, provide information to us. So the panel, like I said, they're working on the panel, and I'm gonna get in touch with them and see where we are with that. So yeah.
Okay, I'll check my network. In some research that I've done, and I'm not a doctor at all, but have linked nutrition to cancer. Is that something that
Yeah.
you guys are interested
Yeah,
in?
And that's exactly what we were talking
we
about.
wanted Yeah, we wanted to reach out to a nutritionist. I haven't found one quite yet, but being in the gym field, I was gonna reach out to one, but if you know one, that'd be perfect. Also reached out to a cancer prevention program. They took all our information, but they said give them about 3 days to reach back. But I feel like if we can grab a nutritionist, that'd be great, or somebody to just encourage a healthy eating.
I actually know one. Glen Arden's own Dr. Kofi Essel. He was just at the White House speaking on nutrition.
Cool.
So I'll reach out to him. He stays in Glen Arden, and hopefully he could be available that day. So I'll get back to you guys on if
That'd be
that's
great. Appreciate it.
possible.
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments on this discussion on this topic? All right. Sidewalks, Councilman Harry.
Yes, I just want to say, we need to get Public Works to go behind these sidewalk people. They're doing a nice job. I do like the ADA ramps being put in, but they're also destroying people's property. I know as a person's property where they dug up the front of the house, the property at the front of the house, they basically put the ADA ramp in, they put a barrier, like a small retaining wall, which I guess is required now when you put those up. And they raised the person's property up, and then they cut the front of the grass off. So now there's going to be runoff on there. And they really just should have just took that little cement barrier all the way around the front of these people's house. Because now that with the weather, them being on the hill, with the weather and everything, it's going to erode their hill. And I've seen it happen in Glen Arden plenty of times. It starts raining, then the hill just slowly starts eroding, and you can't get the grass to grow because every time it rains, it runs off. So I think Public Works need to look at that. Also at the corner of my house at Johnson and Grant. I mean, I hope they're coming back because they're not leaving those big old holes there. They're not leaving those big old sinkholes there in my property. They need to come and fill that back in. So they haven't come back yet. They laid it a while back, but I think the Public Works need to go around and check out all the places where they've installed these ramps to make sure that they haven't damaged people's property. Because I am seeing it as I go around and look, I'm seeing where they have, encroached on people's property, but they're supposed to put that property back to where they found it, and not just throw some seed down and say it's going to grow, which is not going to do. So we need to mitigate that damage before it gets worse. So I'm just saying that, that needs to be looked at. And if the city got to pay something to get it done, they need to get it done, because it isn't fair to the citizens to have to deal with that problem that wasn't there before. So that's my issue with the sidewalks. So that's all I'm asking is the city manager to have him go around and check that out and report back on that.
Ms. Barber, do you have that?
Yes, sir.
When does the new director start?
The 11th.
Okay. All right. And the sidewalk project that's not done yet, correct? Okay.
No, they're still working on the ADA ramps and then some of the sidewalks, and then they'll do the rest of the sidewalks. And we'll go through and look at those areas that need to be touched up. And before they leave out of town, we'll have them take care of those sites.
And how long is this project supposed to last?
So I anticipate it'll last a couple of more weeks. The weather was not helpful this week. So I'll have to get with the job site supervisor. I did have him come out today and do some additional viewing for me, but I haven't heard back from him on that. So I do plan to meet with him and the job site supervisor when the weather breaks to see where we are and what the anticipated close date for this will be.
All right, thank you. Councilman Harris.
Yeah, I have one other thing.
Can I interject real quick while we was on that topic, Councilman Harris? I was just going to say that I know some people that's experiencing the same thing, and I have some pictures for it too. If Ms. Barber would like me to send them to her.
Yes, if you could send me those addresses, that would be helpful.
All right, thank you.
I guess another question I have about the sidewalks, and this is kind of frustrating. We have a law in our books that all utility companies are supposed to let us know when they're in the city and they're doing work so that we can know what they're actually doing. So across the street from my house, they've been working on the streets. They've been replacing pipes at the lower part of Johnson Avenue for it seemed like almost 3 months. They dig up the street, they replace it, they dig up the street, they replace it. So they were in the middle of Johnson down in the 7800 block. Now they moved up closer to the intersection of of Grant Drive and Johnson Avenue. So the sidewalk people that we hired to put the ramp in came and did cutouts on that curb. And the WSSC came through and dug up the street and put up the whole curb and laid a brand new curb that we I'm assuming we're gonna put a ramp there. So are we gonna cut it out and cut out the new curb and put a ramp in? Because you have a ramp scheduled to be there, but they put a brand new curb in there. And if we had known that they were going to be doing that extensive amount of work, we could have had WSSC put the ramp in and saved us some money. And that's why it's important for us to know when utility companies are coming in, because again, we looking at trying to do some major work over in Ward 3, street paving. And if they're going to come in and cut it up within the next 6 months, we need to know what's going on. And they've done that before in Ward 3 on a number of streets over there where we were going to do paving and they came in there and just cut, and dug. So yeah, it just seems like it's just a waste of our money now that they got to cut up this new curb. If you come down Johnson Grange, you see the brand new curb there and new sidewalks. And to put a ramp in that technically we could have called WSSC and said, hey, since you're doing that, could you make that an ADA compliant ramp? Which technically I think they were supposed to do anyway, because they disturbed the curb. They're supposed to put an ADA ramp in. Once you take it up, you're supposed to restore it back to make it ADA compliant. So I think we need to look into that, because again, we wasted money now putting up a brand new curb just to put a ramp in. So,
Okay, I can look into that.
Yeah, you may want to look into that. Just reach out to WSSC. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Charter Review Committee. If you guys can, I know we're getting later into the night, so if you guys can keep it overall brief, overall brief, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. So Council Vice President Ferguson, Councilman Herring, and myself met with the attorney Karen Ruff, who is working with us on this project. We quickly realized that we would need to first focus on what type of government structure we were going to have in the city of Glenarden before we could proceed with addressing the rest of the charter, because whatever our form of government is, the subsequent sections of the charter should follow that. In discussion around the history of how we got where we are today and then what we're actually doing in practice, we are proposing that we move to a council manager form of government, with the mayor being a part of the council. And so the city manager would continue to be a chief administrative officer, and the mayor would be one of the 7 council members. And so that now would give the mayor legislative authority and the ability to vote, which the mayor does not have now. And that will also more clearly define the roles and reduce the overlap between the mayor and the city manager role, and just bring about greater accountability and execution. Of course, that would not be something that would go into effect until the next election. And with that proposal, we are looking for feedback from the citizens. So there's going to be a public hearing on October 20th and another one on November 15th. So the 20th, instead of having a charter review meeting, we're going to be having a public hearing to get people's thoughts on that. And again, on our regularly scheduled public hearing on November 15th. Once we decide on the governance structure, we'll commence the review of the charter in accordance with that, with whatever governmental structure we land on. That's
all right. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was taking notes. Councilwoman Guillaume.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. Just a quick question for the public hearing that's due to take place. Is that going to be in person, hybrid, or virtual?
It's going to be hybrid, so it's going to be in person. So citizens who want to be in person can come in person, but there will also be a Zoom link.
Thank you, and so thank you for that. And I do want to say, I think I had sent this out before the night of the charter review, the charter review committee meeting, that there is a citizen in particular who went to the building, and he stated that he thought the charter review committee was going to be in person, and I shared that no, it wasn't, and we reflected that online, but online meaning the website, but he stated that it would be helpful if we stated that as well on the TV station. So the TV channel, excuse me. So if the administration can make sure to just be clear, if you guys are already doing it, then please disregard what I'm saying. But if you're not already doing so, just to make sure that that level of clarity is provided so citizens will know when a meeting is held virtual, hybrid, or in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jones.
Thank you. As a sidebar to all of this, I have received a lot of citizens' concern about the when we're in person and having the Zoom meeting, that the audio is horrible, that they cannot hear, and then the dais is so far away that that's an issue for them also. So that's something that we need to address.
Yeah, well, thank you. So in an effort to help with that, that's one, we're new back to the space, so they're going, get some there are going to be some adjustments that need to be made, but during these meetings, if we can all speak into the mic, I know we have it further away, but we need to move the mic up so people can hear. And also, and what's helpful, because into the cable people on board, the distance for the camera is going to be an issue. So if we could make it a habit of acknowledging the chair of the meeting before you speak, then I'll acknowledge, Ms. Jones says Council President, and I say Ms. Jones. So the people who are online, though they can't necessarily see close up, can know who's speaking next. That's the temporary fix until we have the camera equipment up and running. But we'll continue to work at it and make adjustments as needed. All right. That was the Charter Review Committee. Neighborhood design for 7th Street Park, Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you. Council Vice President Ferguson, Councilwoman Guillaume, and myself as the sponsors for the 7th Street Park Playground met with neighborhood design. We had an excellent conversation with them, and out of that conversation, we have a memorandum of understanding, which was included in the packet to move forward with them as the designer for that space. That would include hosting public sessions to gain feedback from the public on what they are looking for in that space, so that as we design the park, we have all relevant stakeholders' comments and considered. And so they will do that for us for a fee of $500. That was all of that is detailed in the memorandum of understanding. So if you all have a look at that, that would be great. As a result, we have postponed the session that was supposed to happen this coming Saturday, October 8th. The new date will either be November 12th or November 19th. It will likely be November 19th because November 12th is a long weekend. So people might not be available, but they will help us with the advertising for that so that we can make sure we get people to come out both in person, online, and those who cannot attend, making sure that they have an avenue to submit their remarks in advance. And they've helped with the Martin Luther King Park. So the city of Glenarden has used them before, and we've had great success with them.
Councilwoman Jones.
Thank you. So this proposal by CPJ Charles P. Johnson that was, I won't say negotiated, but talked to, had a conversation with the city manager, Mrs. Barber. So we're not going to use, we won't be using this anymore. This is, since we're going to use neighborhood design, is that what I'm hearing? The CPJ agreement is not going to be brought to the council any further. We won't need them.
Yes. Councilman Fareed.
No, and I see, so I'm gonna let City Manager Barber answer, because I do believe CPJ offers additional services that we would be able to use them for. That would have been my understanding, but Ms. Barber.
No, I'm specifically talking about this one for the 7th Street Park site improvement.
Right, so I asked them to stand down, given the request by Councilwoman Fareed to use neighborhood design. So they are still on call if we need them, but I did ask them to stand down regarding the 7th Street Park.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other discussion on neighborhood design? Okay. That is it for the topics of discussion. Moving on to administrative reports. We're not having them read, but if there are any questions, all the reports have been provided to council for advanced reading. So if you have any questions now, now's your opportunity to speak on it and to ask them. Councilwoman Jones.
I did have one question that's not on the report for the city manager concerning surplus properties. How are we going? How is that going? How have we? I know that one of the vendors for the city hall, one of the caterers wanted the refrigerator freezer. Have we? Have people been asking for those, or is the list gotten any shorter? Where are we with that? What's the status on the surplus properties?
Yes, ma'am. So we did get rid of the chainsaws that were on the surplus property list, and we did get rid of the refrigerator and the freezer that was on the surplus list. And we do have a bid for the lawnmowers that I did talk to the treasurer about today. And so people are still interested, and we are still getting bids on the information that's on the website. And as that is sold, we will update the list. We just have not had an opportunity to do that as of yet.
Okay, and also I did get your email concerning the newsletter. I just wanted to let the council know that there are some citizens that did not receive the newsletter. So maybe we really need to do purging and looking at our address list as far as that's concerned. And I also saw on the Public Works report about snow removal. Are we in process of getting a contract for that, or is that something that was just mentioned that the Public Works is going to make sure that it's addressed?
Right, so we did put out an RFP for snow removal, and we did not get any responses back from anyone. So what I had my executive assistant do is reach out to a number of organizations or companies individually, and we did get we received one back but however, I don't feel that they have the capacity to meet the city's needs at this point. So we are still reaching out on an individual basis to try and get quotes for the snow removal. I've had one individual has said that they were going to get me the a bid back, but I have not received that. And then we're also working with another company out of Washington, D.C. that's a larger corporation to see if we can get bids back from that. So we are working diligently to try and get a contractor under contract before November.
Okay, so the persons that did the snow removal last season, they didn't respond either?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And my last question is cable TV. When are we going to get that a vendor to address that? I know that 3 vendors came in and looked at the issue for service, but have we gotten any persons that are interested in being our cable TV person?
Yes, ma'am. We got back 2 responses, 2 proposals, and Ms. Ward and I have looked over those proposals. We were in the process of going to bring that to you all for October, but we missed the deadline because we didn't have all of the pricing information. So we do have all of the pricing information now, so we'll be bringing that to you all. Unless you'd like to do it as a special meeting, we'll be bringing it to you in November.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Thank you, City Manager. That was actually my question. So just to follow up on that, who are the 2?
I don't have them right in front of me. Let me see.
Did you have a chance to look at their offers yet? Are you leaning?
Yeah, so I can, so one is the gentleman who submitted before, Mr. Rick Gray of Still Beach Post Production out of Bowie, Maryland. And the other one is Edge Media Group LLC out of Largo, Maryland.
And did you have a preference for one over the other?
After we received the pricing from them, it's probably 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. One is better on pricing, one is better on municipal experience. So what I would like to do maybe is shoot you all over some links of their work so that you could take a look at their work first and then take a look at both of the candidates, because it was not a clear-cut candidate to us as staff based on the information that we received. They are really about dead even.
Thank you. My other question was around the website data, the metrics. I'm struggling to understand from this what it actually means. Like I see, our users are 1,600, right? And then it says new users are 1,500. Are we saying that we got 1,500 of our 1,600 users came between August 24th and September 20th? That seems a little strange. But more importantly, what does this even mean? Like, what's our target? Is, 1,600 a good number?
Well, we would like it to be higher, of course. But what that does is, and I'll have to get with Monet on the new users versus the users. But the goal is really for the website is to, of course, to drive more people to our website to get information, to drive them to spending more time on the website for information. So that average engagement time, we want that to be up. With regards to the other metrics, the social media metrics, we want to have improvements in those as well. With Twitter, like it only says we have 2 new followers. So, we want to be able to increase that usage of social media in our media outreach to our residents. And so that's why we put the information like that in there, so that you all have a sense of how effective we are being with those platforms, and whether or not we should look at one platform versus the other. And because it takes a lot of time, right, to maintain all of these platforms. And so we're looking to see whether or not which platform is most efficient for us, and trying to focus on that, and then seeing if there are opportunities for us to look at different avenues as well.
And that's good. So that's what I wouldn't be able to make that type of determination by looking at this. It would be really helpful to have that context of the goals that you have and how far off from that we are, and what you think the right strategy is to increase usage. Because I just can't tell if these numbers are good or bad.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Harry?
I'm looking at this letter from Boulevard dated September 6th. I'm not understanding why we're just getting this here in October, especially since they submitted the concept plan on August 31st. I'm sure a notice probably went out to somebody who had that. I know they required to send it out, but I'm also, I know with us being the person of records down at the DPOD, we should have gotten something. I'm just saying, because, you know, and this is to the mayor, because the mayor, you had a lot of information on this project that I just heard about. And this should have been shared as soon as we got this information, because we got to get ahead of this. Again, they're saying 2 apartment buildings. I don't know where they're going to build these apartment buildings. Are they building them in Glenarm, or are they building them on the other side? But information like this, the council has got to know about it as soon as we get it, because we have to call these people in and ask them about it. Now, they do have information on here where you want it, we could get in touch with their engineer or record, Nicholas B. Speech, which is who we may need to get with, and see if they'll come out and give us an overview of what's going on once we find out what's what. But it's imperative that the council gets this information ahead of time, because we only have a certain amount of time to protest or appeal anything that's being built, you know, either in Glenarm or around Glenarm. For that matter, we may not want the buildings across the street from us. But I can't see us being late on this. If they're only doing a concept plan and they haven't gotten to the detailed site plan yet, I think we may have enough time to see exactly what they're doing and address it, and have them come in and give us an overview of what's going on, because they directly affect the city of Glenarm. So I think we need to look more into this. But I'm just saying, when we get letters and stuff like this, I would have liked to have had it a month ago. You know, if it came in a month ago, at least.
Right. So it came in on the 7th of no, it came in about the 7th of September, and I did send it out by email on the 13th when I got it. I'm not sure what happened to it between the 7th and the 13th.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I get my email, so I ain't see it.
Right, but I do, like I said, I've been trying to reach out to Mr. Speech for the past couple of weeks, and I haven't had any luck with that. So I was really just going to go and show up at their office one day and see if I could get some information from them.
Well, if you call them up and say, well, you know, Mr. Speak, what I'm going to do, since we don't know what's going on, we're going to file a formal petition against the development of this property. I bet you they'll come out then.
Right. Well, I haven't been able to get anybody to answer the phone over there, so that's been the problem.
They know if a municipality files a formal protest, that it stops the whole thing.
Right.
In its track.
Right.
So sometimes you got to threaten them. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Oh, it threw me completely off. All right. With that, next on the agenda is a vote to go into closed session. So under our charter, and pursuant to the annotated code of Maryland, State Government Article Section 10508A, the council by majority vote may retire to executive or closed session at any time during a meeting. Should the council retire to executive closed session, the chair will announce the reasons and a report will be issued at a future meeting disclosing the reasons for such closed session. This vote to go into closed session will be to discuss a matter regarding personnel actions and possibly the item of real estate, depending on whether it is a qualified topic to be discussed in a closed session. So with that, we will go into closed session. We will and go ahead with excuse me. We'll adjourn the open session and will not come out of the closed session. After the closed session, it will be the end of the meeting. So with that, do I have a motion to go into closed session? I will first it. Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman
Okay,
Harris.
I'm looking at the Open Meetings Act, and it says that you can go into closed session on real property acquisitions only. That's it. Not. You can't go into closed session. It says that there's no exception. The exception does not extend to discussions about selling or renting out public property, because citizens have a right to know who you're selling their property to, because it's them. So if we're not acquiring property or we're not in negotiations to buy property, according to the Open Meetings Act, we're supposed to be having an open meeting on this issue if it's about us selling city property, because that's the citizens' property. It's not the council's property. It's the citizens' property. Their tax dollars pay for that. So I'm just saying that should not be a closed meeting item according to the Open Meetings Act.
100% agree, Councilman. Councilman, goodness gracious, it's getting late. City Manager Barber.
Yeah, so I think having that bit of information, this would be eligible for open session discussion. So if you all prefer, we can bring it to you next month.
Okay.
It is not for the acquisition of property. It is for the selling of city property. 3 different individuals wish to buy property from the city, multiple parcels in one case, and singular properties in other 2 cases.
Okay. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, then why wouldn't we just talk about that purchase now and then go into closed session and discuss the personnel items? Either way, we were going to be discussing it, if the council, that is, tonight.
That's up to you all. I know it's a late hour and it's not an imminent, issue right now.
Council President, yeah, I was just saying, if we were about to discuss that in closed session right now, then I'm just saying, let's just discuss it in open session. But if we're not going to discuss it at all tonight, then that's fine.
Okay. This is where a good parliamentarian would come in, but I think we have a motion on the floor to go into closed session. I don't know then if we have opportunity to discuss that tonight, given that we're in the middle of a motion to go into closed session. Unless we discuss it in a discussion part of the motion. Ms. Barber, do you just want to briefly go ahead?
Sure. So there are 3 requests. One is a request for property off of McLean Avenue for a couple of parcels off of McLean Avenue in lots 34 through 39 and part of lot 40. That is for, I believe, Mr. Dennis Smith came to me and the mayor and asked about purchasing those lots. And then there's another request by Market Pro Home Buyers to purchase property at 125 Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. And then there's another request by Ms. Royette Smith, and I believe that is to purchase a lot located at 8515 Martin Luther King Jr. Highway, Lot 8. And I did I did pull up the SStat for all of those properties and see what the assessed value is, but the question is what is the market value for those properties? So my recommendation would be whether or not to get a market analysis for those properties. And so the city has a sense of where its bearing is if people are wanting to make bids on the property, so that when those bids come in, the city knows where their threshold that they would want to sell the price would be.
So your request of the council right now is for approval to get a market analysis done.
Yes.
Any discussion on particularly that as opposed and not the people who are purchasing the property, but on the topic of a market analysis? Any discussion, Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you. The property that's being requested on McLean, we've been dealing with this since 2020. And at the time, CPJ did a feasibility assessment on those properties. And it would cost the city about $16,000 or the person that wanted them to continue for them to do this feasibility. It's probably more now because it's been 2 years ago. To do this feasibility study to find out whether, I think because when they were requesting to buy the property before, I think it was Councilman Herring that said that we would have to find out the worth of that property on McLean to the city. And so the former chief O'Donnell, who was acting city manager at that time, had all the information sent to the engineer. And like I said, they came back with a feasibility assessment for those lots on McLean, and it was going to cost about $16,000. And he did not think that that was investment that the city should make, as far as if these persons wanted the property, that it would be for them. I think I sent all this information to the council once before concerning those lots on McLean. So.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilman Harry?
Yeah, no, I have no comment.
Oh, okay. So Ms. Jones, you're saying that the market analysis will cost $16,000. Is that what you're saying?
A feasibility study to find, right, the market, to find out how much that property, because then there were some discrepancies with that property too, because the school board owned some of the property and a church owned some of the property. And that property butts up to so many different properties that they would have to find out exactly where the city property line begins and where it ends. So they were going to do a feasibility study, and that study was going to cost about $16,000 for them to do. I mean, I can send all this information back to the council again.
And was that just for that one piece of property, or was that for all the open?
No, that was for all of those lots that they were requesting. What was it, 34 through 39?
On McLean Avenue.
Right, because it's right in front of, it's right at the curb. Well, like I said, I can send this to the council again.
Well, Ms. Barber, may it be helpful if you pull all the information together and send it to the council so that we can have
Sure.
time to think about it and, properly discuss it. Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yeah, I think I have the CPJ feasibility assessment that Councilwoman Jones is referring to. I can send that over if she would like, to all of the council members, just to save her a little bit of time.
Okay.
Um,
Councilwoman
Council-
Guillaume?
Sure, thank you, Council President. Just a quick question for either City Manager Barber or Councilwoman Jones. The document, the feasibility study that contains the market analysis that is being referenced, is it just for those particular parcels or is it for all vacant lots / parcels throughout the city?
No, this was
No.
just for those particular parcels.
Got it. Okay. I don't know what the right, if this is right or wrong. So this is just me throwing something out there. So please, no judgment here. I'm thinking if it would be in the city's best interest for us to have an assessment done on all the vacant parcels, because I would hate for us to keep coming back. Like, what if another person comes and says they want to acquire another lot or whatever, on whatever street, and then we again have to come right back to the drawing board and say, okay, we have to do another feasibility study. So wondering if there's any way we would consider that as well. And we don't need to answer that tonight. I'm just putting it out there as a thought for us to just explore.
Thank you, Councilwoman Guillaume.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Barber will get back with us. See what it will cost to get, a study for all of the property, and give us a little bit more information, and a little bit more time to think about it before we discuss it in an open setting. All right. With that discussion, I have a first, I have a second by Ms. Councilwoman Jones. We've had our discussion. If there's no further discussion, Council Clerk, could you do a roll call to go into closed session, please?
Yes, sir. Councilwoman Jones,
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
Yes.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fareed,
Yes.
Vice President Ferguson,
Yes.
President Curtis.
Yes.
We have 7. It's passed.
Thank you. With that, the open portion of this meeting is now closed. Thank you, citizens, for coming out. See you at our next meeting. Miss